It's week 8 of season 16 on LFM, and we are coming with some excitement this week because we have sprint racing at Imola. But I come with some fresh expectation. You see, off camera a few weeks back, I did the LFM Duo Cup race with my highly rated teammate Leighton from West Competition Racing. He's a top 400 ELO player in LFM, and he was giving me a lot of really good tips and coaching around Imola during those sessions. So this week I come with some fresh expectation of what is possible around Imola, and as the thumbnail of this video suggests, I put out one of the very best ACC laps I have done to date. There's also a really nice surprise to my ELO rating, and we'll discuss that at the end of the video. But for now, let's jump straight into qualifying for the first race of the week. Alright, we're going to get into qualifying here for race number 1, a strength of field in the split 1 race of 2,900. This is absolutely the highest strength of field I have ever raced against. I'm dual card number 17, and the 4 cars behind me in ELO are right behind me, all within about 150 ELO, so there are no slow people in this race. You can see a 140.2 has just been set by that BMW for provisional pole. I am absolutely getting nowhere near that in this session, but having set a 42 flat fastest and an invalidated 41.6 just the previous lap, I was certainly hopeful to make some gains, and as we come out of the hairpin there, we're showing 4 tenths up, so we are already looking like a really good lap for me this time round. We come up to turn number 9, you get it turned in over that curb, run it right on the outside, watching the track limits there, and then we're coming down into the bowl sequence here, turns 11, 12 and 13. Second gear, a little bit of curb, and then run it right up over that exit curve, up the hill towards the chicane. A lot of work has been put in by me with this chicane, and a lot of good tips from my West Competition Racing teammates, taking a lot more of that entry curve, and we come out the other side 6 tenths up now, making our way down to the very final set of corners, which are very easy to get wrong. You can really undo a lap quite quickly here, whether by being too cautious or overdoing it. Down to second gear again, a little bit of curb, not too bad on that first part, a little bit of a brake and a coast, and then on the throttle using that exit curb to get out the other side. I've lost a little bit of time, which is a bit annoying, but we're on here for a 1 minute 41.4, and that is provisionally going to put me in 14th place. So a really good lap from me at this stage, but only 14th, and that turns into 15th place on the line. So we're a bit unsure of how we were going to play out in this particular race. I'm close to my dual card number, so I'm not really expecting any miracles here as we get into this race. Green light and we are away. We're going to be relatively cautious down into the first corner here. It's an easy one for big mistakes to occur and a real bottlenecking of this first turn. This is technically actually turn number 2 on the circuit map, with a little kink after the start finish line as technically turn 1, but we'll call it turn 1 for the purpose of this video. Come out the other side there's a little bit of bumping with that Honda that was beside me, and the Mustang now has a really good lunge down into turns number 5 and 6. He hangs it around the outside, so he's going to grab that place. And with those couple of cars getting shuffled around in turn 1, we stay in our P15 starting position as we exit the hairpin. A little squabbling behind gives me a bit of space behind, so I can now straight away try and get myself into a groove of this first race of the week. We get up to turn number 9, and the blue Aston Martin there, he goes wide at that corner, so with the speed difference I'm able to sneak by and take the racing line as we go down through turn 11 here. Down into turn 12, get it turned in. The Aston Martin is certainly going to be putting some pressure on me, having qualified a couple of places for higher up, but we get through now a few laps later on, and you can see he's still definitely directly behind me, and I have started to lose a bit of time to those faster cars in front. However, it's not easy to pass around Imola, so it was really focused on just putting some really good laps together. As you can see, the black Ferrari, he's had an off-track excursion there. We've got a bit of a speed difference. I have a half think about it, but I don't think it's worth diving into turn number 5 and 6 there. It's easy to get caught onto the outside of turn 6 in a move like that, which I've experienced in the past. And we come down to the hairpin here, and these cars in front, again, they are quicker. I'm not really expecting to be in this fight at this stage, but I'm just trying to hang in as close as I can to see if I can't capitalize. I don't get the chicane right here on lap number 5, putting some big pressure on now from that
blue Aston Martin as we come down towards the final sequence of corners. He's got the black #1 Bentley right behind me as well. I go to the inside to be defensive, and the blue Aston Martin leaves the door open for the Bentley to then come up the inside of him. There's a bit of a bump on the exits there, and we gain a little bit of time on that now black Bentley behind us. However, he is marked for the door card #1. He is expected to be very fast, and he very quickly catches me. And on lap #7 here, I don't necessarily get through turn 12 poorly here, but that Bentley's got so much more speed. We open the door and we let him by into the chicane here, hoping to simply follow him along a little bit here with the space behind to that blue Aston Martin. Nice gesture from the Bentley as well as we come out of that corner. A little flash to say thank you for letting him by, which is nice sportsmanship, I feel. But a couple of laps later, and as you can see, he's certainly pulled away. He's caught the back of the train in front, and I have not really been able to follow that well. The blue Aston Martin is starting to catch also, but as we get into the chicane on this lap, there's a little bit of squabbling up ahead, and that is starting to bring that group closer to me. So potentially in 8 minutes to go in this race, there will be a chance to capitalize on some errors. On to lap number 11 here, the Mustang does go long at the chicane as well, so once again we are being brought back into this race a little bit, and hopefully there is some moments ahead that I can capitalize on. As we come down to the final sequence of corners, the black Ferrari and the pink and silver BMW in front, they take a bit of a nose to tail, and the BMW goes around, so we do inherit that 13th place now from that BMW up front. But as we come into the last lap here, as you can see, those cars in front have got their act together, driven away from me a little bit there, and I am now just looking at holding on to this 13th place. A 41.7 in the race isn't too bad for me, but I definitely need to try and be a bit more consistently at that 42 flat marker if I want to be in any better position than I am. However, I do feel that taking a 13th place in a field of this strength, remembering 2900 elo as the strength of field, and so many of these guys in front are at that 3000 plus mark, I was pretty happy with the effort for the first race of the week. It was a really intense race, and I picked up a full 6 elo for that race, so at least there was a little gain from all of that hard work there. Now let's show you one that didn't go so well. This is a split one race once again, but the strength of field is much lower. As you can see, I'm door car number 9, and in the rain I've managed to qualify in P7. You can see the visibility is very, very poor as we come down to turn number 1, so we're going to be very, very cautious here, under brakes, and we're going to get through turn number 1 pretty cleanly, so good racing from everyone here to not take any damage at all through this first corner. And we come out the other side holding on to that 7th position. But this was going to be a really tricky race for me. I haven't really done any wet driving in the BMW or at Imola, so everything about this race was going to be about finding where the limits are and trying to not make any mistakes. However, I wasn't going to be fairly successful in that mark. We come down to turn 5 and turn 6. We get over that curb okay, but I touch that exit curb a bit much, get a massive slide, and that allows the black BMW there to get on by, so I lose that one spot to position number 8. A couple of laps later, on lap number 5, I miss my braking marker at the hairpin and go wide. The Nissan behind the Australian driver, in fact, he manages to get down the inside of me there, so we're losing out on that Southern Hemisphere battle. And then the next lap I get collected by the red Ferrari behind. Because I'd gone long, I probably braked a little bit earlier than normal, and he's missed his brake marker a little bit. I had an apology from him after the race, so no dramas there. It happens in wet races, but unfortunately we get down to position 12 after that debacle, and then a Ferrari behind completely lunges me at the hairpin a few laps later once again, which was quite frustrating, but we got out the other side there, losing another place down to 13th. This race is really not going that well for me, considering where I started and where in theory I should be finishing. We then get it onto the entry curve into turns number 12. The gold McLaren behind does exactly the same thing. We both go off track, but I'm much slower coming back on, and that leaves the gold McLaren and the green Aston Martin to come by. If I drop down to position 15th, after all of this mess, it's really not going my way. A 29 car field, so we're in the top half still, but this is certainly not where I wanted to be, and I was well keen for this race to be finished. On lap number 10 here, the gold McLaren's a little bit slow through the first few corners, and as we come into turns 5 and 6, he misses his brake marker for 5, goes wide at turn 6, slow exit there, and I'm able to get up the outside here. Decent braking, we all leave each other room, and I'm able to go around the outside there at the hairpin and then drive away from him for the remainder of the race. And that's where this race more or less finishes. We come into the last corners here, the chicane, I completely messed that up for the final lap, and we're well and truly ready for this race to be over with no pressure behind. We coasted over the line for a quite shocking P14 in that one, so they don't always go your own way. So after all the split 1 races this week, my 5th race of the week was the split 2 race that I had been hoping for. We're starting this one with door card number 9, so there's certainly some quick elo drivers in this race as well, but as the thumbnail of the video suggests, this here is literally the best lap that I have put in ACC so far. So let's take you for a ride, my final lap of qualifying here at Imola for this session. We come through turn number 1, hard over those 2 inside curbs, and we're coming out of turn number 4 here with a little half-tenth margin of the 141.4 second lap, which is provisionally pole for this race. You can see we've got 24-degree track temperatures, so not too dissimilar to the practice conditions that we had. And we come out of the hairpin with 2.5 tenths, now almost 3 tenths up on that 141 lap. I was very keen to get a sub 141 lap this week. I'd been chasing it all week long, and I thought it was a realistic target. We come out of turn 9 really nicely, almost 4 tenths up now, and we're starting to flirt with that 41 flat marker. Down into the bowl here, out of turns 12 and 13, still pretty decent, comparable to the lap prior. 4.5 tenths up as we enter the chicane. This is probably the best that I have taken the chicane all week long. Lots and lots of that inside first curb, really nicely out the other side, and we pick up now to 5.5 tenths up, and that sub 41 lap is really looking like a possibility here. These last 2 tricky corners to get right, we go hard on the brakes, and I get it really nicely through that first part. 6.5 tenths up, not too bad out of the final turn. We lose a tiny little bit of margin there, but at 6 tenths up, I can see it on the time board. I know I've got it in the bag here, a couple of upshifts to go, and we're going to come across the line at 1 minute 40.83. Absolute PB for me, smashed it out of the park, and as you can see the reaction there, I am beyond satisfied with that lap. But coming down from that high, I really had to focus now on this race, starting out of pole position, but the Aston Martin next to me of Mr. Gasper, he set a 41 flat in qualifying, which is probably more indicative of his speed, and therefore I was quite worried that in the race he would be faster than me. So this was certainly not some guaranteed win for me by any stretch of the imagination. We get a nice clean safe run through turn number 1, we get half a second on that P2 car, and we've got a nice ability now just to focus full eyes forward on this first lap, trying to put together the best opening lap that I can. I've only come off pole position once prior in my LFM journey, so this was all very new for me, and very thankfully I'm able to put together a really good first lap. Now coming to the end of the first lap, that Aston Martin does make a bit of a mistake into the final corner, and then it really bunches up those groups of cars behind, and on the next lap down through turns 12 he makes another mistake, and that causes all sorts of chaos with those cars behind at the chicane, and as a result I have a really tidy 3.5 second lead at the end of lap number 2. So just keeping my nose clean and doing the best laps that I can. 42.1 on that first proper flying lap, not too bad for me as we come into the start of this race. However, it wasn't going to be all my own way. As you can see, it's a slightly less than tidy lap on lap number 4 here, and coming into lap 7 we are now showing 1.6 seconds behind to that P2, although we are growing the gap now to P3, which is Jeff TSC from the Sim Cafe. He really put us to the sword last week at Zolder, so I certainly wasn't comfortable there with him in P3, and as we come across the line at the end of lap number 7, Mr. Gasper puts in a 141.3 in the race, an extraordinary number. It's not something I can do in race trim right now, so I was very nervous, and a couple of laps later he comes across the line there. He's now just 0.3 behind, and we've put a little bit more time there into Jeff in P3, so it was very much a 2-horse race here with 4 minutes and 20 seconds to go. I was really counting on the fact that Imola was going to be a hard place to pass at, and if I put my very best driving in, I was going to be able to hold on to this one. However, Mr. Gasper has a very good run through turn number 6 here. I'm looking behind. My exit's not too bad. I think I've got enough of a buffer, but unfortunately he does throw a really good lunge up the inside at the hairpin, and I was just a bit lazy on the defense. In hindsight, I should have just hugged that inside and not left the door open, and he does enough there to get on the brakes. He gets a stop. There's a tiny bump on the door card there, but there's nothing more I could really do. I'd left the door open and he was entitled to go in there. So it was a case for the last few laps here to just try and put on as much pressure as I could. I didn't want to just simply let this one go. We come through the final chicane here in the final lap, and you see I'm right on the rear bumper there. I'm trying absolutely everything that I can to get a bit of a pressure on. If he can make a mistake, I need to be right there for it. And we come down to these final corners here. I go as late as I possibly dare on the brakes. Lots of pressure on, but he's holding firm here, and he gets a nice little exit out onto the main straight for the last time, and that is all one can do. We can only try our best, and that was probably the best driving I'd put in at Imola all week, but it wasn't enough. Mr. Gasper had enough speed there, a little flash to say well done sir, and we get a nice little return from him as well, which is a nice touch. So good race sir, but P2 for me, happy with that one.
So another successful week for me in the BMW in LFM racing. My ELO is now over 2,000 for the very first time, and the safety rating is slowly creeping up to that top mark as well. But I want to circle back to the PB lap I set in qualifying at the end there. The reaction of that lap was for the sub 141 second lap. That was a target I had been chasing all week, and I was very happy that it was for my second pole in LFM. But based on the strength of field I was racing against, I would have still been that excited to set that lap time even if it wasn't for pole position. You see, for me, chasing the times has certainly been a good motivator for me, because it's always hard to produce a result in LFM, and if you are chasing results, you may be more disappointed than not when you come to your driving. However, a time cannot be taken away from you regardless of what position it is. So that's always been my focus when looking for improvements, trying to focus more on myself than what others do around me. As I said, it was great that it was for pole, and it was awesome to get that podium position, even if I was a little bit lazy on the defense in that last race. But it was certainly the result that I was looking for. Overall, it's been really good motivation to keep pushing hard in the LFM season, and I have another week's racing back at Red Bull Ring, which if you've watched my videos will know that is the first track that I did LFM racing on at Rookie Series. So I'm excited to go back and see some progress in endurance race for that one as well. But for now, let me know in the comments how you think I went at Imola. Let me know your best time at Imola as well. And as always guys, race hard, stay positive. We'll see you again in another video really soon. Cheers.